In this movie, we are going to introduce 3D in Flash. Or, as we like to say, 2.5D. Flash is a flat animation program. We're really not working with 3D models. We don't have 3D information. So, we have another term for it. Postcards in space. Okay, we're gonna postcards in space is the kind of snarky term that Flash developers came up with when Flash first developed 3D. But actually, the 3D tool is an enormous time saver when it comes to certain tasks, which we're going to look at in this movie. Okay, postcards in space. Well, to do this appropriately, I do have a new movie open that I've called Part 3, and we're going to import some JPEGs. We haven't really done that before, so it's easy. Really, all you do is come to File, Import. You have a couple of options here. Well, we're going to look at these first two. Import to stage or import to library. The only difference between this, if you import it to the stage, it's also going to put the JPEG in the library. If you import to library, it's just going to put it in the library. But I want to show you something, so we're going to import to stage. Okay, so I have this folder already where I have 4 postcards, and you'll notice that I've named these with sequential numbers, and you're going to see why in a minute. But we're going to start out by just opening up postcard.jpg. And you'll see that it has imported it, put it right on stage for me, and as I said earlier, it's 2 days to Halloween, so I picked out a Halloween postcard. It's kind of funny. This is one of these other postcards. I actually have it. I used to collect old postcards. I haven't bought a postcard in years, but I used to get them. Okay, let's see this. When I click on this to select it, Properties panel is telling me that this is a bitmap. Now don't confuse this with .bmp, the Windows file format. A bitmap is just a word we use to mean really what it truly is a raster image. What a raster image is it's an image that's made up of pixels. So instead of being points and curves like our... Oh, I chose a bad one for this. Okay, we can't really see the pixels in this image. Instead of being points and curves like our vector shapes, this is actually a grid of pixels that are different colors. Okay, you've seen that whenever things get, like ancient versions of Mario Brothers and stuff where they're all pixelated. Okay, so this is called a bitmap. If we look at the library, we will see that it has added a resource to our library. This is not a symbol, it's just a resource. It's called Postcard JPEG, and it's got a different little item here, or a different little icon. Whenever we bring things in, I like to put my bitmaps or my raster images immediately into symbols, because remember my symbol rule of thumb is that if I'm going to have it on more than one keyframe, I want it inside a symbol. Okay, so I'm going to immediately convert this into a symbol. I'm going to convert it to a symbol. I'm going to call this what it's called, postcard. MovieClip symbol is a great symbol to use just as the default for the library, so we will click OK. And what this means is if I use this like 20 times throughout my movie, different sizes, different stuff, and then I'd find a better postcard, I can just go change whatever artwork's inside the symbol, and as long as I put a new postcard in that's the same size as the old one, nothing in my movie is going to change. It's just the image will change, but not the position or the scale and all that. So that's the reason why I immediately go to symbols. We're going to delete this from the stage because we don't need it anymore. I just wanted to put it in the library in a symbol. Now watch, we're going to do this again. We're going to import to stage or library. I'm going to import to stage so I can show you something cool. These things are numbered sequentially, right? Same name, 01, 02, 03. So I'm going to import 01 and choose open, and look at this. Flash says, ooh, this appears to be part of a sequence of images. Flash is smart enough to understand numbers and count. Do you want to import all the images in the sequence? This would be really handy if you had like an animated GIF or something that you wanted to bring into Flash that was a sequence of images, or maybe you have a number of stills out of your camera that you took one after the other, kind of rapid fire of something moving or something. Because look at what happens when I do this. It's going to bring the bitmaps in, and look at this. It put them on their own keyframes, which is kind of cool. Now, if this were a sequence of images, like in a flip book or something like that, that'd be kind of neat because it'd play. But in this case, no. No, it's not going to do anything but blink between these. And we don't care, because what we're going to do is go through, and since each one of these is on its own keyframe, it's going to be very easy to convert this to symbols. Okay, I'm going to convert this to symbols. Now I could call this Postcard 01, or whatever postcard it is. I can't see my... Yes, Postcard 01. I could also call this Smoky Mountains or something, but that would no longer be appropriate if I changed the artwork inside. So all of these naming conventions that you use is a naming convention that you prefer, that makes sense to you. Okay, this is the one. I'm pretty sure I've got this one at home. Okay, I'm going to convert this to a symbol. Delete it from the stage. Convert this into a symbol. Now, just to kind of prove a point, or just to make it easier to understand what's going on here, I did make these all the same size in Photoshop. Whenever you are bringing things into Flash, it is important to go into Photoshop and edit it, especially for size, because if this were like this ginormous image that was like 10,000 pixels per side or something like that, and the image took up 10 megabytes, if I were to publish this, Flash is going to keep all of that image information because it doesn't know what I want. And so even though it may appear very small in your movie, the file would have to store that huge amount of information. So again, the rule of thumb here is to decide on what your largest scale of this image is going to be, what the largest pixel dimensions it's going to be. If it's going to be 1,000 by 500 or something like that, what I would do is scale that in Photoshop, which is very good at scaling, then export it using Save for Web and Devices, export it to either a JPEG or a PNG file, and then bring it into Flash at its maximum size. Typically, I save things out of Photoshop as PNG or PNG because that's a lossless format, and Flash does JPEG compression on its own. You can override that if you're really a fussy person and want to do your JPEG compression in Photoshop. It's absolutely possible, but for most cases, bring it in as PNG, and then just allow Flash to JPEG it when it exports it. Okay, we've deleted these all. I'm going to go ahead and remove these frames as well so that we're just working on a single frame here. We're going to start. Let's go ahead and make this timeline medium. Which one shall we work with? Little Lamb, Smoky Mountains? Oranges. Okay, let's work with the oranges. Now, since this is a MovieClip symbol, MovieClip symbols are kind of special in that MovieClip symbols can be manipulated with the 3D tool. Okay, so let's look at this. We have this selected. We see we've selected a MovieClip. Your 3D tool is this one right here. If you click on this, you will see this familiar 3D rotation icon. And I say familiar, but it's probably totally unfamiliar if you've never seen one of these before. This thing is giving us axes that we can rotate on. So look at this. The red axis is the x-axis. The y is going to rotate it on the y-axis. The blue is going to rotate it on the z-axis. Now, we know our axes x and y. X is horizontal, y is vertical. What's z? Z is the one that comes right out of the picture plane and pokes you in the nose. Z is the one that it comes toward you or goes away from you. Let's start by rotating on the Y. That's this green one. It does make sense that it's the horizontal one. If you work in SketchUp, these are the same colors they use, RG and B. Watch this. This is rotating it around the y-axis, which is the one straight up and down. Okay. I'm going to undo that. Rotate it on X. Let's try this blue one. That's kind of counterintuitive, right? I told you that Z is the one that comes out towards you. But if you think of that axis as coming straight out of the middle of this movie, what we're doing is rotating it around that. And then finally, there's this one on the outside, and this is one you don't see in some 3D programs. This one allows you to do free form. This allows me to rotate in all of the axes at once. And you know what it even allows me to do, which is kind of cool, is flip it around. We're not really looking at the back of the postcard, otherwise we'd see, dear son, having a wonderful time, wish you were here. But we don't, because this isn't true 3D. And if we go end on, this is infinitely thin. So we are kind of limited in what we can do with 3D. If you totally mess up what you've done, remember your transform panel? And remember this button right there, remove transform. This also works for 3D transforms. Just click this and it takes you back to normal. This is a tweenable thing. So watch this. We're going to come out here to frame 30, put a keyframe in here, and let's just free rotate it like, I don't know, how about like that? Come in here and we are going to create a classic tween. And what happens? Well, classic tweens being classic tweens, they were actually made at the very beginning of Flash. Okay, they were made at, Flash 1 back when it was Future Splash or something like that back in the 90s. Long before 3D existed. So, classic tweens are not going to work for 3D. What we have to do is use our other type of tween, and that's the motion tween. Now we can come out and rotate it. Remember, we studied these tweens first, and they're the ones that put in the little diamond keyframes, which are property keyframes. Now this type of tween can do it because this is actually the newer of the tweens. Okay, so if you do need to tween something in 3D like that, remember you have to use the new tween, that's motion tween, rather than the classic tween. Just like classic movies are black and white instead of color, classic tweens aren't 3D. Okay, but that's not all we can do. And actually, this is maybe one of the more boring things we can do unless you're wanting to make something look like it's flipping up or something like that. I'm going to put a new layer on here, and we're going to just delete this one. And instead, we will make these things in a MovieClip. Okay. I'm going to insert new MovieClip. And we're going to call this a stack of cards. And I want to bring out instances of all these symbols. Postcard 1, postcard 2. I'm not paying attention at all to what I'm doing here, though actually I should be using my selection tool to drag these out instead of the 3D tool. I'm just going to throw them in here. I hope I've been watching and putting symbols in rather than grabbing the JPEGs. Yeah, it looks like I'm okay. Just because of what we're going to do, I'm going to center these on the symbol registration point. I'm going to see why in just a second. What we're going to do with these instances is manipulate their Z index. And the Z index, X is where it is on the horizontal, Z is where it is on the vertical. or y is where it is on the vertical, and z is where it is in space coming toward you or going away from you. Before we do that, we do want to be able to select these individually. So I'm going to select all and go to Modify, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. Remember this one? This one takes everything that's on this layer and puts it on its own layer. And actually you will see very nicely, Good Guy Flash has actually given the layers the same name. We saw that in one of the other movies, or one of the other demos. Again, it leaves your original layer there. We're just going to get rid of that so it doesn't confuse us. So let's start with the top layer. Whenever I do stuff like this, to keep things from being too terribly confusing, I usually hold down my Option or Alt key and hide all the other layers. However, this time I don't want to do that because I want you to see what's going on. Don't you love it how I start out saying I'm going to do something and then I change it? That's because I'm not sure why I do that, but it's my style. What we're going to do here is come up and change this thing's Z position. You can see that it's this thing is centered on the registration point and it's 400 wide, so its upper left-hand corner is actually negative 200 and it's 266 tall, so it's negative 133. We're going to change the Z index of this. And watch this. I'm just going to drag this, and it looks like it's getting bigger, doesn't it? But it's really not getting bigger. It's just getting closer to you. And you can actually see that kind of in that there's this one behind here. Now I'm putting this one at negative 200Z. That means it's coming above the picture plane. We're going to hide this one so that we can see the one underneath. And we're going to put this one at negative 100. Okay. Hide this one. We're going to just leave this one at 0. Gee, I wish I would have brought in another postcard so it could be balanced, because that kind of thing is important to me, but I didn't, so I'm going to have to deal with it. We're going to put this one back in space at 100. And so what this has done is inside of a MovieClip symbol, we have taken some other MovieClip symbols and stacked them. And look at this. They are actually receding in space towards a vanishing point. Now, here is where this gets cool. We're going to come out to our main stage, and we will set it so that we can see the whole stage here. We're going to drag an instance of stack of cards out to the stage. And that's going to be way too big, especially because of this one. But watch this. As I move this around, that one is still way too big. You can see that those things are in the back, and they are receding towards a vanishing point. And actually that vanishing point is something that we can change. It's right here. Watch this. I'm going to drag the vanishing point. There, now our vanishing point is over there towards the left-hand side. It's this kind of hard to decipher icon here. Now watch what happens as I move this around. See how those are receding in space? Maybe we should scale this down a bit. Oops. Lock the dimensions on there. Yeah, we can see it a little better this way. Is that cool or what? Something else that's cool about this is that now if we take our 3D tool and mess with this, watch this as I rotate it around the y-axis. There is Postcards in space. It gets a little bit confused when you flip it around to the back, so we don't flip it around the back unless we have to. we can rotate it freely. And you can actually make something like a cube. It's a lot of work, but you can actually make a cube by taking like a postcard and rotating it around in 3D space inside the movie clip, and then rotating another one back and moving it back and to the top and all. If you really, really want something like that, yes, you can do that. We're going to see in the next movie something else cool that this does. And remember, again, this is something tweenable. So if I start like this, put on not a classic tween, but a motion tween. Let's make this nice and long so it goes slowly. With one of these regular motion tweens, you can actually lengthen the tween just by dragging it out. And I'm just pulling it past the side so that I've got it. We've got it to 200 frames, and what we'll do here is now bring it back so that it's like this. So our tween okay. That's kind of cool.